Welcome to the Essential Element, the Elements of Education podcast. My name is Christian Page and I'm your host. Thank you for choosing to tune in. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're choosing to spend your time with us. Today, a conversation between myself, Zach Varnell, and Brittany Skobel is what we're going to show you. Brittany is a leader in our schools. She is responsible for the NextMove program and has seen it from its infancy to the systemic state in which it's in, providing students with opportunities to have mentors in the community, to have job placement in the community, and an opportunity to be able to do all of this through an equity lens. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Brittany Skobel.
Our school, we really believe in relationships, and that is emphasized through mentor group. And so I wholeheartedly believe in that.
What do they need? I have to be able to answer that question. And that takes a little bit of time. The biggest teacher, I think, is failure. The brain works in failure. And those failures are actually synapses rewiring themselves in your brain.
And think about where you want to be. Because when you find your place, you find your people. And our purpose is attached to people.
You know, when there's a phenomenal teacher, when there's a phenomenal educator, when there's a phenomenal mentor, one of the mistakes that we make is we make it look too easy. Like, everyone sees the shining moment on stage. No one sees, right, like the hard time spent. Welcome to the Essential Element, the Elements of Education podcast. I'm Christian Page, I'm your host. Our friend Zach Varnell, which you know. And our guest today, our very special guest, is an individual by the name of Brittany Skobel. Brittany is amazing, has her hands in a lot of different places, one of those places being NextMove here in the Element Schools. But Brittany, if for people who have not had the chance to meet you, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you've landed here in this particular space.
All right. I grew up in Tacoma. Went to school in Tacoma Public Schools and found myself at SOTA in 2006 as a paraeducator, working with a student with disabilities as a one-on-one paraeducator, and never thought I would go into education, but found myself in a full inclusion setting, working to support the student connecting with her peers and accessing education. And so I just found that I was really passionate about that. I was passionate about being part of a team that was doing this work, a staff that was excited to do things differently, and also about building programs. So early on at SOTA, I was involved in supporting full inclusion and then also building the Bridge program, where we had students pair with one another, support each other in the classroom. So I did that for a number of years and then decided I wanted to become a special education teacher and went to UW Tacoma, got my certificate, and started working at SAMI when we first opened. So at SAMI for a few years, bouncing between SOTA and SAMI. And then would support the internship program. Back then it was just in January. So we would, for 3 weeks, we'd send students out into the community, have them explore a career of interest. And then from that experience, we just decided that we wanted to expand, have it be a semester-long or a year-long experience where students could build relationships over time and get engaged in projects alongside professionals. So started doing that work full time, and now I am working as a co-director out at IDEA, as well as serving as the program coordinator for NextMove. Yeah.
Awesome. Yo, a long story that begins and ends here, it sounds like.
Yep.
Cool. So we've had the chance to listen to some of the perspectives of students who have participated in NextMove. But from your perspective, right, what do you think are the benefits of that program, of the way that it's run, and how it helps students be able to navigate their future?
Yeah, so at the partner schools, all students in their junior year get to participate in NextMove, and really we want all students to have access to opportunities that allow them to explore their interests, develop their passions, figure out, like, if they've got a career that they think they're interested in, we want them to, one, get the skills and preparation that they need to pursue that. And then we want to get them out into the community doing that work and see if it's a good fit. that's the main thing. We want them to get confident in themselves and their skills. We want them to experience those careers so that when they graduate, they're making informed choices. They know what they want to pursue, and they know it's a good fit for them.
I have a question about the history of placing kids into internships in high school. There's a concept called work-based learning that a lot of people talk about with, career and technical education. It's somewhat limited in terms of its scope in most schools. Like, work-based learning is usually for a particular set of kids, a particular goal of being like, let's get credit for kids that are just working. We obviously see a larger goal when we think about internships beyond just let's get them credit for being in a business. What do you see the goal is? Like, why is this so important? Why do we want to get kids out of school to go be in a business and spend time in the school day working for another company? Like, what purpose does that serve in terms of how students navigate their future in the context of high school?
Well, for a lot of students, they might think they want to pursue a career in medicine, but they don't have any real exposure beyond just their own experience going to a doctor, or they think they want to be a teacher. And for a lot of students, they would then graduate from high school, pursue a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year education, and then get into the job and realize maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So traditional work-based learning programs would give students credit for a job that they may already have. So say they're working at McDonald's and they're getting credit for that time. They're logging their hours, they're getting a paycheck. And our program is really focused on the individual learning goals that a student has. In education, we're able to offer programs within a school, but there's so many individual students with unique interests. And so the internship program really allows us to create a unique opportunity for each individual learner. We look at what are their skills, what are their interests, what are their areas for growth, and then find that match in the community, that community mentor that can work alongside that student, support them in pursuing their goals. And really it does become a one-on-one relationship and support for that individual student.
Can I slightly preamble, but also a spicy question? Because I have worked on behalf of students for internship placement, have also worked within employers receiving interns. And one of the things that we notice frequently, right, is when we ask the story of how someone has landed here, oftentimes those come with some sort of relationship. And I guess the spicy part of this is there's a lot of nepotism in this game, right? Where when I've worked in certain places, a lot of the interns and someone internally has shared the same last name, or it's somebody's boyfriend's cousin's girlfriend's sister, or something along those lines, right? And I think what you're doing and the way that you're doing it is awesome because it also approaches this with equity in mind. And an understanding, right, that not everyone has those connections. There has been systemic barriers over time that prevented people from having those type of connections. There have been places where people were not allowed to work, so on and so forth. So at risk of soapboxing in this particular moment, I'm curious for you, how do you keep equity in mind when we're running these type of programs and we're finding placements for students? And how do we let them lead on what is going to be their future?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so important that students should have opportunities regardless of their family connections. And so that really is our goal, that all students have access to these opportunities. And so for us, what we do is we have a NextMove coach at each one of the sites at SOTA, SAMI, and IDEA. And their goal is really to get to know each individual student, understand what their goals are, what their strengths are, how they can help them grow, and then finding the best match in the community. So it might be somebody that is really, the student is the best fit for this opportunity, or this kind of mentor is really going to help this student grow. So it's all about knowing each individual student and their story and what's going to help move them forward. I think the other thing is super important is allowing the community to come in and become mentors and teachers, that allowing the community to invest in each individual student. We need more than just the educators in the room to support our young people as they pursue their passions. And I mean, just like you as an intern host a few years ago, like there are passionate people in the community that want to make a difference in kids' lives, and giving them the opportunity to do that. It's really important.
So I really want to touch on that at some point, because I think that's such a key point. But before we jump into how this engages community members as additional adults in kids' lives, I just want to circle back on this idea of, I wrote down 3 words: access, association, and representation. And when we think about kids and their opportunities in life, they think internally, sometimes subconsciously, sometimes actually pretty openly and consciously, about who they think they can be in life. And it comes down to, what do they have access to? What do they see themselves even possibly getting into? What are their associations? Who do they associate with that demonstrates they have access? And then representation. Do they see people that look like them, talk like them, come from their communities in the positions they want to be? And to me, the power of internships is it breaks open the 3 of those lanes for kids. They start to see, I do have access to this. It's not something outside of my realm. I can associate with someone like a doctor. A lot of kids have never met a doctor outside of like a health exam when they go in like once a year. Yeah. And they do start to see people that look like them in different fields, which I think is transformative for a lot of kids. It's a huge opportunity. But we have to break down those norms, and we have to create systems that do it. And the other thing I want to get back to by the end, I just want to talk about is why this is so hard for a lot of schools. Like, as we've tried to talk to other schools to do it, it's just, there's so many barriers in the way. And you've experienced firsthand, it is a tremendous workload to take this on and actually implement. So it's not like this is an easy switch to flip. It's a whole systems change you have to approach. But before we get into all that, I mean, how do you see those 3 work? I mean, like, do you see that as a part of the mission of what we're doing with NextMove?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is about providing all students with access to learn and grow their skills, and access to the community experiences. I mean, I think a lot of traditional, whether it's volunteer experiences or job shadows, it used to be that you had to have a family connection. If you were wanting to work alongside a doctor, like you mentioned, like you had to know somebody in that field. And so we've worked really hard to build relationships so that we can be that bridge for students. We can provide access to them, for them, to those types of opportunities. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could tell the story of, we had a student that was not a native student to the United States. He was undocumented. And as he was going through our program, he wanted to be an architect. Luis was his name?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story? Because this is, I think, a great segue from providing access, and then also how we engage community to be a part of kids' lives in a different way.
Yeah. So we placed him, this was many years ago, we placed Luis with a aeronautics and aviation company where they were manufacturing parts, and one of their employers was the government. So he had to have a social security card in order to get onboarded with this company, and that became a barrier. And so he let us know, I don't have a social security card, I'm undocumented, and kind of through that experience, learned about his story, and knew that we couldn't move forward with the placement, but also knew, okay, he needs more than just this internship experience. He needs a mentor, somebody that is going to care about him and his future and help him achieve his goals. And one of our existing partners, longtime partner, McGranahan Architects, Michael McGavick, has been a big supporter of ours, hosted interns every year. And so we called Michael and told him a little bit about Luis's story, and said, would you be willing to take him on? He is interested in architecture and engineering. And so fortunately, Michael was just so enthusiastic about bringing him into his team, and was able to mentor him through that internship experience. They ended up helping him get his green card, and they're still connected. I think that relationship doesn't always happen, but it created an opportunity for him to get connected to an individual that's going to care about him. Luis graduated from SAMI, went on to WSU, and now lives in Eastern Washington. But he had that connection, and every time that he would come home, he had a soft place to land. He could come back to McGranahan and work during the holiday breaks. And Michael would travel to WSU for Dad's Day weekend. And like just this beautiful relationship came out of that.
That's incredible.
You just never know where these experiences are going to go.
To me, I mean, what's so amazing about that is that you have someone who's not an educator, they're an architect. They run an architectural firm, and you give them the opportunity to connect with a young person with no training or background, and they want to help. And I just think that is such a missed opportunity in public education. We're afraid to reach out. And I've experienced this all the time with internship hosts. Like, you want to protect them from, like, they're high school kids. Just like, if they get too rowdy, just let me know and I'll pull them and we'll talk to them. But you realize, no, they actually they need resources sometimes, but they want to engage kids. I've had experiences talking to internship hosts before where they've said, yeah, this kid isn't showing up. They're not engaging. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, no, it's fine. I want to engage more. Is that okay? I want to try to figure out how I can help. I'm like constantly blown away by how often adults outside of the realm of education really desire to figure out how to engage in kids' lives when they're given specific opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. They care so deeply, but you just have to give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
So what is the gap that exists there, right? Because I'm hearing both of you state, man, they're ready, right? The hands are there, but also hearing that this isn't happening as frequently as we'd like it to. Maybe happening here because of NextMove, but in public education as a whole, right? So what's the gap?
Before we get into that, do you want to give a little background into like how we prepare kids for this experience? Because it's not like we just say, okay, here's the phone book, pick a business and call them and let us know when you'll be back, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to share a little bit about, so I mentioned that we used to have internships just in January, and it was just at SOTA, and then we moved to SOTA and SAMI. And from there, as we expanded to semester-long internships, moved to the comprehensive high schools. And so knowing that we were working with students from different school settings, different communities, we wanted to make sure we had a way to prepare all students so that when they go to potentially the same site, we've got students from different schools going to the same internship site. Our hosts can see that the students have gone through the same preparation. They have the same skills. They're ready. And so we developed a program called Intro to Internship, and it was a way for students to get some of the essential skills, the soft skills, but the essential skills so that they're ready for those internship experiences. So we want students to have a professional resume and a cover letter. We want them to have experience interviewing or networking with individuals. We want them to have the confidence to share who they are and what they care about, what they're passionate about, what their skills are. And just general professionalism skills. So we give them, they go through the Intro to Internship curriculum, and then they're also working on campus as an on-campus intern, serving as a support for a teacher or students in the classroom so that they're getting that first experience as a professional in their safe and supported community before they go out into the broader community.
That's cool. We have,
I thought we were going to circle back. I'm still curious about that.
No, I mean, I think so. Like, there's a whole preparation that leads into them being placed. And then I guess the question is like, so once they're placed, like, why are other schools not doing this? Like, what are the challenges that prevent people from, there's obviously an opportunity, not only for kids to get this experience, but to break down some pretty systemic inequities that exist for a lot of kids. Like you said, most kids only get an internship if they have a cousin or, like a family member that has access to some employer. And so we create a system to be able to provide that. Why doesn't every school do that?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of reasons. I think some, it's out of fear, like what's going to happen if we send kids out into the community. We want to keep them in a school where they're safe. We know where they are at all times, who's working with them. So some of it is fear. Some of it is just the sheer coordination of a program like this when you've got kids matched with site hosts and all of the paperwork that goes along with that, and tracking of the hours and the learning goals. It's a lot to manage a program like that. And it's a lot to scale. So some programs might serve 20 students. Our program serves 400 students. And so just managing all of those students and all of the businesses that go along with that. I think also the community, and making sure that the community is passionate about this work. Fortunately, Tacoma is really passionate about supporting its young people. And then it's also about finding, each person has a motivation, their own motivation for why they participate. And so it is spending time building relationships with the community. And it's a lot of time committed to that work. Fortunately, we have done this for 20 years, and we have a lot of community champions that are helping grow this work, connecting us to other community partners that would be great hosts, helping spread the word. So it's just a heavy lift. And so I would imagine that there's a lot of different reasons why people don't do it.
And I think when you think about how to implement a program like this, there's so many different facets and roadblocks you run into. The only way to really get it to scale is to approach it from a lens of systems change. Like, you have to actually change the way you think about your system in order to redirect resources to support it, and look at the long-term view of how you're going to grow something from its infancy into full adoption. It doesn't just happen. So as an alternative, a different way that I would believe is an unsuccessful way to approach this would be to say, we're going to write a grant. We're going to write a grant to hire someone for a short period of time to put some kids into an internship. That will provide at least a runway to get it started, and then we'll figure out what to do next. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but doing that is not changing the system to support the need to get kids into community and to give them this access. It's just providing a temporary opportunity that will go away at some point. To really seek systems change, you have to dedicate resources. So we have a NextMove coordinator at every one of our schools. That's a full-time employee, and their entire job is spending the fall getting every kid ready for an internship, and in the spring coordinating, placing, monitoring, and giving feedback to every kid in their placement. That type of commitment requires resources. You have to dedicate resources to it. The other thing that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, Brittany, because you were a part of this whole build, is that it took selling our community on the need, even internally. Like, it wasn't something that you just say, hey, we're going to do this, and then it happens. You have to internally build capacity with your teams to recognize it, and then change the whole system to support it. So now every single one of our juniors, it didn't start off that way. Originally, it was just in January, but now every one of our juniors sees that opportunity as part of their high school pathway in their junior year. It's not an option. It took years to get to that point.
Yeah.
You want to talk about how you guys did that? Because it's amazing.
Yeah. For many years, we were convincing each individual student, working with teachers, connecting with family, convincing people that this was important for students. And fortunately, we've had the shift. And really what it took was building out the 4-year course sequence for each pathway and embedding it in there. So students can, when they come in as a 9th grader, they know what their classes are in the 9th, 10th, 11th grade year is really carved out for their internship, and that experience is already mapped out for them, so they know it. The families know when they come in that experience is really important to us. As a school community, we've made the commitment. Everybody understands that is something that students are doing, and I think the other piece is just knowing that we're committing to every student. We're going to find the right fit for every student. And so whether that is something on campus that's helping that student grow, something at an elementary school, or this type of opportunity, but finding the right fit and believing that every kid can achieve and participate in this program. I think that has been really important for our whole team, our whole school.
And being willing to confront not only challenges, like there's always challenges that come up. Well, transportation. How do I get to my internship site? Credits, like I need other credits. Pushback from parents. There's always parents that say, I signed my kid up to go to school, not to be an intern. And you have to explain and sell parents on the idea, and just recognizing you're never going to get 100%. There's always going to be some pushback. But confronting those challenges and addressing them one by one and being committed to the long haul of implementing that and getting it to scale, I think is what really speaks just to the power of your team and how that works.
Yeah, I think they're also just incredible problem solvers. They love puzzles, and it's all just one big puzzle of trying to find the right fit for every student, understanding each student and what's going to be the best fit for them, building that relationship so that the student trusts them, sees them as their mentor, and can help coach them to that next step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then on the community side, like obviously there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into recruiting and building capacity in the community to place these interns. Can you talk a little about how you guys go about that?
Yeah, every which way.
I actually dropped in on a meeting the other day when Michael, who's one of our instructors that now works with NextMove, was talking to a community host, and she had the pamphlets and the materials and had the sales pitch. And I'm like, how many times does she have to do this every day? It's got to just be astronomical.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, we have many hosts that return year after year after year. So that's key, maintaining the relationships that we have so that we're not starting at zero each year. So we've got our returning partners, and then we lean on our students pretty heavily. So if they have a specific interest, who do you know in the community? Who are you researching? What businesses are you driving by as you're coming to school? So they're not going out and knocking on doors for us, but they're bringing the names to us. We can vet them. We can go do the door knocking and the selling. We've got people like Michael who are amazing ambassadors for our program and the work we're trying to do. And she doesn't take no for an answer. That's the other thing. But it's pretty relentless. You just you stay at them because so many people, they don't think they have the capacity, or they are trying to grow their own business and they can't imagine how they would take on a student. But what we find from a lot of our intern hosts is that it helps them remember why they got into the work. They're re-energized by working alongside a young person. And I think I mentioned this before, is just figuring out what makes them tick and then helping them see how this can benefit them. So whether maybe they had a mentor early on in their career and that person made a difference in their lives, reminding them of that and the power that can have in a young person's life. Or they are a growing business and they're looking for future employees. This is a great opportunity for a student to try you out as an employer, for the employer to try out future employees and see if that's a good fit. So everybody's got their own unique angle. We just have to kind of figure out what that is.
And I just, in hearing you say that, I think there's such significant value. And if there are any community partners watching who have been on the fence, right? I think that's huge to think about. And again, spicy, at risk of soapbox. I work with a lot of organizations, especially as they talk about recruiting. And one of the myths I think that exists in the world is, we want our workforce to look like our community. Mm-hmm. However, there are not enough qualified candidates, or insert whatever other excuse might exist here. And I think the thing that you're eliminating is, one, the myth, but two, an opportunity to build pipeline. If I'm with you and supporting you when you're 17 years old, right, the likelihood of, if the position comes open, that you'd want to fill it, I would imagine, is probably pretty high. Between the three of these schools and the emphasis on the idea of diversity, and not just as race or culture, right? But in thinking about all of the different ways in which we brought in students together, I even commend the way that is a system. We won't talk about the lottery or anything of that nature later. But I think what you're doing is so valuable, not only for the students and the lives that they're experiencing, but right, if a business understands this, if a community organization understands this, the pipeline and what that will mean for the future. And I always have known, I worked in recruiting, I worked in college recruiting, I worked in a lot of those places. And the best recruiters are young people who have positive experiences with the organization, to come back and tell other folks about it. And so I don't know that I'm on the way to asking you a question. I think I'm really on the space of saying thank you for building this from its infancy into a system that consistently puts 400 students in a place, right, to engage with their community and essentially become the future professionals that will exist here. Yeah. And I know that's so significant to Tacoma, but really, thank you
It's always refreshing when we connect with a community partner that sees that connection, that sees it as an opportunity to grow their pipeline. If they want a diverse workforce that looks like the city of Tacoma, well, we've got the city right here, and they're ready. And so, fortunately, like this city of Tacoma, Kaiser Permanente, are some of our partners that want to have bring in not just 1 or 2, but 20 young interns that come from diverse backgrounds, that represent the city and give them access to jobs and experiences that are going to help them explore what they want to do. And yeah, they might be a little selfish in that they want them to come back and work for them, and that's perfect. Like, we all have something that we care about, and that is our goal. Like, help them see those connections and build those relationships, so when they get their education, whatever that training or education may be, that they're coming back and serving and supporting our community.
I just have to add, there's also hidden benefits for educators with interns. We, one of my interns when I was a teacher at SOTA got an internship with Tacoma Rainiers, and part of his internship was to be the parking lot attendant at the Rainiers games. And every time I saw him that summer, he would like flag me in for free and let me park, in the front lot. So I'm like, this is awesome. This is a great.
Yeah, Rainiers about to send you that invoice.
Right. This is 10 years ago, so hopefully he's into a better career by now.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no, I think that there are so many benefits to this. Brittany, thank you again, right? From seeing it from its infancy to where it is now. Thank you for spending time with us today and telling us about the program. And I'm really excited, as from one Tacoma into another, that you exist in this community and are doing all this beautiful work to shape the workforce of tomorrow. So grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elements of Education is a 501c3 nonprofit organization in Tacoma, Washington, dedicated to changing public education to better serve the specific and diverse needs of students in our public schools. For more information about how you can support the work that we do, please visit elementsofed.org, or you can find us on Instagram at Elements of Education or on our website,